Good evening, members, to the reconvened meeting of the 8th of September. Agenda item 1, Chairman's notices. My name is Councillor Boyce and I am Chairman of the Malden District Council. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contribution as clear and concise as possible. Thank you, members. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence, Mr. Jennings.
Mr. Chairman, apologies from Councillors Howard and White.
No, Councillor Hell's here.
Councillor Helm, you mean? Helm. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Agenda item 3. Sorry, Councillor Siddle.
Yeah, I'd like to send apologies for Councillor Mays because she's away for a personal reason.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Agenda item 3, minutes of the 6th of July contained on pages 9 to 20. To confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 6th of July 2022. For accuracy only, do you accept these minutes by acclamation?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, the minutes of the 25th of August 2022. To consider the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 25th of August 2022. Contained on pages 21 to 26. Again, do you agree with them by assent?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Agenda item 5, declaration of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda having regard to paragraph 9 and Appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are also reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as they become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. Is there any such declarations? Councillor Durham.
Chairman,
They've turned me off. Anyway, Chairman, this gives me great weight to the point that I'm about to make. As a point of order, Chairman, under Rule 8, open brackets 3, close brackets. Chairman, I'm sure Mr. Jennings will be aware of this, and I'm sure it's something that in the past we've always abided by. And this, Chairman, is the standing to address council rule. I appreciate that this was suspended during COVID, and this council acted properly in light of the pandemic. But Chairman, Rule 8.3, for the benefit of members, says, and it's never been varied, it requires a member when speaking should stand and address the chairman. So, Chairman, can you tell the council and all of the people that have asked about this why this rule is not being implemented? It's the proper way. I can see the chairman nodding in agreement with you. Can you tell me why we don't do this anymore?
Councillor Fluker, you may have noticed that I stood to address the council rather than address it from the seat. And it is my intention that you should stand. It may well give difficulties with trying to read the laptops at the same time. And now we've got the extra problem of no microphones. And I don't know how this will affect our live streaming. Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Chairman. I have an other registrable interest as a member of Essex County Council.
Thank you. And your microphone's working.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Chairman, I mean, if you don't stand, what happens to you then?
I'll take that on advisement, as Perry Mason used to say. Can I have any other interests? I'll answer in a minute, Councillor Bassinger. No
Sorry,
other
Mr. Chairman,
interests?
what was that?
Right, Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand from Mr. Quelch that we don't need to declare as members of Essex County Council unless there's something on the agenda. Is that correct?
I always used to not declare an interest on Essex County Council because it was written down on my register of interests. But I do believe things have changed now. But if Mr. Quelch has told you that, he gives good advice. Thank you. Councillor Stamp.
Chairman, I asked...
Stand, please.
I am, Chairman, I am. I checked with Mr. Quelch and he said we don't have to as an Essex County Councillor, so that's the information I have, and I am not declaring any interest.
Thank you very much. We can now go to agenda item 6, a public question, pages 27 to 28, to receive questions from members of the public, which prior notification in writing has been received. And I believe we have such a question that's been given, and the answer has been given, and I believe published. Now, I think, Mr. Jennings, the answer of the question is not present. Is that correct? You wouldn't know, I suppose.
I understood that he wasn't proposing to be present, Chairman.
Yeah, right, thank you. So can we take that question as asked and answered? It has been published. Agreed? Thank you. I should have said earlier that we've got a lot on the agenda tonight, but my intention at the moment is to try and complete it by 9:30. Now, Councillor Bassinger, what happens if you don't stand up? Well, nothing, except that, as Councillor Fluker has pointed out, it is in our constitution. And as I am supposed to be the defender of our constitution, which is what Councillor Fluker keeps trying to point out to me, that I am not defending the constitution. However, I think the answer is nothing will happen to anybody that doesn't stand up, except that they are, I don't even know whether that would constitute a breach of the members' interests, but there you go. Code of conduct, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Durham. Is that satisfactory answer for you, Councillor Bassinger?
Yeah, it certainly is, Mr. Chairman, but I was just wondering, should there be somebody who was disabled or something, would they then need to require special dispensation, or would they be subject to some sort of ridicule because they didn't stand up?
No, Councillor Bassinger, what would happen if anybody was disabled, or if anybody was feeling unwell and didn't feel able to stand? That would be no problem, and never has been a problem. Right. We now go on to Chairman's announcements. I have. We know the recent events. And I've had the privilege of taking part in part of our national heritage and pageantry, which I feel very privileged. And that I would also like to commend the CLT and all those officers that were involved in the planning and the implementation of what we now know was London Bridge, which was the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. I would like to commend them for the extraordinary work they did, and in particular those officers that were present last weekend. Thank you. To consider the recommendation, agenda item 8, minute book, consider the recommendations. The first one is Performance, Governance and Audit Committee, agenda item 8, Equality, Diversity. Councillor Stamp, please. I think this is in your bailiwick.
Sorry, thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
Members, Chairman, I'd like to propose the recommendation following the Performance, Governance and Audit Committee taking place on the 21st of July 2022, Chairman. And the minutes have not been approved, so these are only recommendations. They've not been approved because PG&A hasn't met since that meeting.
But Councillor Stamp, this is a recommendation that's coming from the PGA, and we will be approving this recommendation or not.
Yes, but I'm explaining why it's coming, Chairman.
Okay.
I did say that I thought you would interrupt me, to be fair, when I actually took advice on what I should say leading to this article. Anyway.
I apologise for that.
That's all right, Chairman. Do I need to sit down every time you interrupt me? No.
Only when I stand.
Okay. Agenda item 8. No, Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Action Update, Annual Review. The recommendation that the Council's constitution be updated to reflect gender-neutral terms rather than him/chairman from the options as set out in section 3.5 of the report. And members' salutations are removed as standard practice. 3.5, Chairman, the Council's constitution and current practices use the term chairman and him. However, the Association of Democratic Officers confirm it is best practice to move away from gender-specific titles, and this would also be in keeping with the EDI policy. Many councils have already adopted this working practice. This report recommends removing the word chairman and replacing with chair or chairperson, and also ensuring the use of his, her, she, he, or better still non-binary language, there, them, they, as appropriate, accepting that an individual may refer to themselves or want to be addressed as chairman or chairwoman or other term, if they so wished. So I present the recommendations to Council.
Is that seconded? Right, thank you. Members agree?
No, I'll vote against.
You can stand and give your reasons if you wish.
I vote against it because.
Oh right, okay.
I also vote against it, Chairman, and I'm standing.
Councillor Durham.
Well, Chairman, I'm sorry, but I firmly believe that it should be the option of the chairman to decide what they wish to be called. Last time I looked, chairs had 4 legs or sometimes 3 legs rather than 2. My personal preference when I chair a meeting will be called chairman, and I will intend to make that point when I chair a meeting.
I think the recommendation actually recognises that. I myself have got a view that I think I never intended to say this, it's contrary to the Local Government Act 1972, because that refers to chairman. I would wish to be called chairman, but I'm very often called chair. But as long as the conduct of the council and business is done, I'm quite happy. Councillor Channer.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I would say this, that I consider I've always been a great supporter of equality, diversity and inclusivity for various reasons, which I don't wish to expand on here. But what I would say is, Chairman, just to get clarification, I understand the chairperson can establish what they may wish to be called during that meeting when they do their introductions. Can I just then check regarding salutations, and I believe this might be the same case, if I so wish to call myself Councillor Mrs. P.A. Channer, because a fact of life is I am married and have been for a very long time, and actually I'm quite proud of that, being called Mrs. And therefore I might like to refrain, or rather keep that, I should say, salutation in terms of myself. And in fact, officers do tend to call me that. It's up to the individual office, but lots of them call me Councillor Mrs. Channer. So can I just check that equally that may be able to apply, so that on my nameplate here I could have Councillor Penny Channer, Mrs Penny Channer if I so wish. Just can I check that fact, that it is not saying we can't define what we might like to be called, it's just talking about the constitution being altered and those that go along with that fine, but if those others want to be called chairman or other such names, or Mrs or Miss or Ms, that's also acceptable, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Stamp, do you want to respond to that? Or do you want to listen to the whole debate before you respond? Right, Councillor Dewick. Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this is just another example of what a ridiculous woke world we are getting ourselves into. It's been accepted for a long time, the proper form of address. I do not have any problem with being called chairman. I do object to being called chair. A chair I sit in and I'm not going to be sat on. So chair is a completely inappropriate thing in my view. So the last thing I want to see is that this council decides and those of us who are chairs of a meeting are going to be called chair or referred to as chair. I personally find it distasteful, as I find much of the woke nonsense that we are ending up with. Most of us, nearly all of us I would hope all of us know how to behave, all of us know how to treat people properly, and that is what we should do. We don't need all this nonsense put down in regulations just to please a very small, narrow percentage of people who have decided that everything needs changing just for the sake of changing it. I just find it completely wrong. As I said earlier, I want my vote recorded against it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Members might, or at least Councillor Dewick might be very surprised to hear me vehemently agreeing with him on this issue. Now, if you'd asked me this question a year ago, I would have probably had completely the opposite view. However, thanks to woke, women are finding ourselves being erased in language at the moment, currently, and referred to as birthing persons. So, members, I think this is a slippery slope, and I think we should resist this. Thank you.
Is it Councillor Siddle and then Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I am the member representative on the EDI working group. What this recommendation states is that our constitution is updated to perhaps what it should have been done about 20 or 30 years ago. Our constitution should be gender neutral. So it should be, there should be no reference to he, it should be they or them. When it comes to a committee meeting, the whole point of EDI is that we are referred to in the noun or the way that we want to be described. This recommendation does not stop that. If someone wants to be a chairman, if someone wants to be a chairperson, if someone wants to be a chairwoman, if someone wants to be a madam chairwoman, it doesn't stop any of that. We can still be called whatever we want to be called. But it's about the written constitution, which is what we need to update. It should not be in a written constitution that refers to a male gender. That is out of date, and that's the crucial thing, because it is excluding anybody who isn't male. Thank you.
Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to say some of that, so thank you, Councillor Siddle. It is excluding people, but particularly I just think anybody that's worried that anyone is going to mistake them for a piece of furniture really perhaps needs to think again on that. Language moves on, and a word that was appropriate 300 years ago just might not be now, and that's just normal. Language evolves, and we shouldn't be frightened of that. Thank you.
But the Local Government Act hasn't changed it in the last 50 years since its 1972 Local Government Act. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I absolutely echo Councillor Bell's sentiments. I feel that I agree with her very strongly, her current views, even if they used to be different. I'm certainly with her now. I don't disagree with Councillor Siddle, but I do have a problem with the English language in that they and their, in very few circumstances, is meant to refer to one person. I just don't want to see it turn into a muddle. The he isn't so bad, but the him, her, the they, their, all over the place is, I think, going to make a bit of a mess of it. And I don't feel excluded by, not being included specifically as a Miss, Mrs, Ms, Mux, whatever else we can be these days. As far as I'm concerned, a chairman's a job, not a person, and I'm a chairman. Thank you very much.
Any other member? Obviously, you can sum up Councillor Stamp if you so wish, and then we'll take a vote, because there is Councillor Lagan.
Chair, would you? In a moment, Chair, I might relocate to a microphone that actually works, because we're excluding people on the live stream.
I'm aware of that, and I'm noting that some mics are working and some aren't, and the advice I've had is they're all on the same line, so they should be working.
Yeah, but it's obviously there's
Yeah.
a IT error. I'm not having someone here because somebody will fix it.
Yeah. Please find yourself another mic if you so wish.
Thank you. I'll do that after this part. I think this is 2022 now. It's not 1950. And I think we, in heritage and in history, some things should be maintained, retained greatly. As you know, I'm very supportive of maintaining our own history and heritage. And I think people are very different now than what they were 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. So I absolutely concur with Councillor Siddle. I think it's time to bring things up to date. We have a historic constitution that is for a district council. Needs a real good bit of Mr. Sheen chuck up its backside to sort it out. So I think we need to move on and actually become a more modern thinking global council in the way that people can be who they want. As Councillor Siddle says, you can be what you want in this. So we're not excluding anybody, we're just saying you have a right to be who you want to be and who you are.
Well, if whatever I may be wished to be referred as, that doesn't put an imposition upon anybody else actually meeting my wishes. I wish to be called a chairman. You always have called me chair. I've got no problem with that. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I point out there could be a Mrs. Sheen as well. You only mentioned Mr. Sheen. But anyway, Chairman, Chairman, this is to do with the Constitution. Councillor Siddle is absolutely right. But the caveat here, the most important one, is in fact that the chairs of meetings can say what they want to be called. So it might be an idea that when chairs introduce themselves, or chairmen introduce them, they just clarify what they want to be called. And if it's Chairman, Councillor, Mr. Chairman, lovely, everybody abide by it. Actually, know what fuss.
Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It was very heated debate, as I remember. It seems a long time ago when this meeting actually took place. And I think as a council we do need to update the Constitution as long as it doesn't take any choice away. I myself would prefer to be called Madam Chair or Chairman. I don't really mind. But if somebody has a strong leaning which way they want to be called and what they want to be called, I think it's vital that this council actually adopts it, Chairman. So, I've put the recommendation, Mr. Chairman, you've got to take
the vote. Right. Those in favour of the recommendation from PGA, please show. Who's counting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? That's passed then. The Constitution will change. I had this debate with, or discussion with Mr. Quelch before, and he described it as the use of chairman in the Local Government Act as an office. So therefore, I'm now a chair in an office. Item B, Overview and Scrutiny Committee. That would be Councillor Fleming. No? Who's the vote? Sorry, Councillor Spencerley.
Okay, so I didn't ask you to do this evening, so Chairman and members, as Vice Chairwoman of Overview and Scrutiny, I bring you the following recommendation from our meeting on the 28th of July this year. Recommended that the Council pauses the current review methodology of the LDP. All members be invited to an extraordinary meeting of the Council to consider options with regard to the methodology used and consider a partial review of the LDP as required rather than a full change to the Council's current strategy. So I present this recommendation to Council.
Thank you. We actually have held this extraordinary meeting of the Council, but we needed to go through the process. That's a recommendation that's come forward, but we've actually already held it. Then Councillor Lagan, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I don't think we have. We had an LPD extraordinary general meeting to discuss the methodology to do with the 5-year housing land supply only. And this is a bit broad, this recommendation, because it talks about consider options with regard to methodology and considers partial review. So we haven't actually done this meeting. We've had an extra one for a previous motion. So this recommendation from this committee calls for a different recommendation.
I'm going to need to take advice on this because I understood that extraordinary meeting was to consider this recommendation. Councillor Spencerley.
Thank you, Chairman. My understanding of that was that we looked at the 5-year housing land supply and the working group being set up specifically, but that didn't. It's been made very clear to us that the 5-year housing land supply is actually a separate issue. So that I'm not sure how that completely addressed this recommendation. Thank you.
Ms Holmes, can you advise me, please? Or Mr Dodson.
Meeting, it was not specifically that recommendation, it was on the back of the motion, but it's felt like a duplication.
Mr Dodson has an answer. Mr Dodson, is your mic working?
Chairman, I think Mr Jennings is trying to attract your attention.
Mr Jennings.
Yeah, all I was going to say, Chairman, if it helps, that certainly this recommendation came out of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee's consideration of a motion reference in relation to the 5-year land supply. Whether it goes further and beyond what you feel the Council has already dealt with is perhaps another issue, but it certainly arose from discussion on the 5-year land supply.
Thank you, Mr Jennings. Councillor Edwards and then Councillor Swain.
So, thank you, Chairman. I'm just trying to find the minutes from the extraordinary meeting. It was to discuss the methodology of how it's calculated, not what's on this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Swain, Councillor Siddle.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Two things. Whether the question was whether the meeting that has taken place did fully discuss the methodology of the LDP or not, but this motion, this recommendation has got two things in it. One concerning the methodology of that, and also this question of whether we should do a partial rather than a full review of the LDP. It seemed to me we should take those two items separately, or two aspects separately.
Councillor Siddle, and then the leader, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. The actual recommendation states that there's a part here looks at whether we need a partial review of the local plan and not a full review of the local plan. Obviously, things have moved on, and we've had that extraordinary general meeting since that particular time. So it's whether is this a review thing and the type of review in terms of our local plan. I think that's the bit that's perhaps different to what we've done already.
Leader, I think next.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I think you may have been going to Mr Dodson. My understanding was, Chairman, because I did ask this question, And my understanding was that actually the motion that went and had to the extraordinary meeting, which of course I couldn't be at because I unfortunately was unwell, was actually sufficient to cover this. That's my understanding. And I believe, and I'm going to put words in Mr. Dodson's mouth, but I thought there had been discussions about this with, I thought, Councillor Lagan, if I'm honest, because I did see something saying I thought Councillor Lagan was to be putting the motion forward on behalf of overview and scrutiny. And that is my understanding, because I did check this out. So I would like some clarification, Chairman, because I wasn't involved in the discussions, but it would be helpful. And I have subsequently asked that question again. Thank you.
Councillor Spencer, I'll come to you because it's your recommendation to at the end. Councillor Lagan first.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want to eat to the evening, but something so important. This is a different recommendation.
Yeah, that point's been made.
Mr. Dodson, Mr. Quelch, so the recommendation that we did, which was much appreciated and the members supported, we've got clarity where we come with that. This is a different recommendation in its entirety.
Okay. Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Chairman. So my suggestion would be that could that not be included within the terms of reference of the working group that we've set up? So that the terms of reference for the working group is looking at the 5-year lag supply?
If as Vice Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, that is what you're suggesting, then usually that is what the Council will accept. Councillor Spenceley, are you proposing that?
No, I'm not proposing that.
Councillor Fluker.
Chairman, this is all to do with an invite to an extraordinary meeting of council, so that all members have the opportunity to find out what's going on. I mean, I think the crowding issue here, and I think overly scrutiny should be placed for the work that they've done on this subject, because they had recognised how emotive this is, and I'll speak to that later on this evening. But this is to do with members being invited to an extraordinary meeting to understand the points that are in there. It is a straightforward recommendation. I don't think maybe members want to speak against this, but I think the majority of members need to know what's going on with the review of their recommendation.
Things we got.
That's it.
Sorry, Mr. Councillor Fluker, please carry on.
And that's it, Chairman. I look forward to this recommendation, so council can vote for it favourably.
Councillor Spenceley, if I come to you, you will be the last person.
Yes, I agree. It's what, I can't decide to do something different. It is what the recommendation that Overview and Scrutiny voted on and put forward, and therefore it is the recommendation that I present as it is to the council.
Seconded as well.
Yeah, we'll take the vote. Those in favour of this, please. Mr. Jennings, recorded vote has been called for. Have you got your? Mr. Dodson have got it. Mr. Dodson will do it. Those in favour say agree. Those against say. Sorry. Yeah, it was seconded. Yeah, it was seconded. We're just getting ready to take it.
Councillor Boyce, what are we voting on? I'm not really clued up on this, sorry.
You're voting on the recommendation that's come from Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Mr. Dodson, would you read out the recommendation from Overview and Scrutiny, please? Or the relevant part.
It's recommended that the Council pauses the current review methodology of the LDP. All members be invited to an extraordinary meeting of the Council to consider options with regard to the methodology used and considers a partial review of the LDP as required rather than a full change to the Council's current strategy.
Okay, have you got that? So those in favour say agree. Yes, I know, Councillor Lagan, it's a recorded vote. Those in favour say agree, and those who are against say against. Are you clear? Right, Mr Dodson, call the roll, please.
Councillor Bassinger.
Agree.
Councillor Miss Beale.
Agreed.
Councillor Bell.
Agreed.
Councillor Boyce.
Against. Sorry, I meant to say abstain. I knew it began with an A. Abstain.
Councillor Mrs Channer.
Against.
Councillor Dewick.
Agree.
Councillor Durham.
Agreed.
Councillor Edwards.
Agreed.
Councillor Mrs Fleming.
Agreed.
Councillor Fluker.
Agreed.
Councillor Hurd.
Agreed.
Councillor Hubner.
Agreed.
Councillor Hull.
Agreed.
Councillor Keys.
Agreed.
Councillor Lagan.
Agreed.
Councillor Morgan.
Against.
Councillor Morley.
Agreed.
Councillor Nunn.
Agreed.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
Agreed, Chair.
Councillor Siddle.
Agreed.
Councillor Spenceley.
Agreed.
Councillor Stamp.
Agreed, Chairman.
Councillor Stevens.
Agreed.
Councillor Mrs Stilts.
Agreed.
Councillor Swain.
Agree.
And Councillor Mrs Thompson.
Against, Chairman, thank you.
That's obviously carried, but we'll get the figures in a second.
Oh, it's not adding up.
So,
It's not adding up.
it is
Have
actually
you got the
agreed
figures?
by a large majority. Oh, is there any abstention? Oh no, that was called for, wasn't it?
So it's 15-4, 2 against.
15 for, 2 against,
And one abstention.
And 1 abstention.
3 against. 3 against.
Yeah, against.
3 against. 15, 3 is 18, and 1 is 19. Where are all the others? Mr Dodson. I think there's about 27 of us here.
26, yeah?
Yes.
Right, okay, 22 for, 3 against, 1.
22 for, 3 against and 1
It was
abstention.
22 for, 3 against and 1 abstention. That is carried then. Thank you, Councillor Spenceley.
Could I speak to that?
Yeah.
Chairman, given that the request is within 10 days.
No, it's not. That's not.
Is it
It's not within 10 days.
Oh, okay.
Oh, do. Right, agenda item 9, minutes, meetings of the council, which you have all before you. Is there any questions on any of those? No? Now we go to agenda item 10, notice of motion. Councillor Lagan to move his motion.
Thanks, Chairman. I won't read, I don't think I should read the whole document.
I would appreciate that. We've got it in front of us.
I was going to sing it instead, but I think Chair, it's quite a long preamble, and I think it's in the public domain, so if any members of the public wish to read it or whatever. Doesn't work, Chris. Did your one work? Oh, thank you, excuse me. Thank you very much, Chair. I it's important that the people of Malden and the district hear the motion. So, in essence, remember, members, I brought a motion requesting that local members be involved in the decision-making process in their local assets. That motion failed, which was probably the decision that I was expecting, because there wasn't enough, it was too broad. So myself and other members have gone back, and the motion that we've got under procedure rule 4, just basically we've had an awful lot of criticism about decision-making processes on Malden Promenade. So what I've asked in this motion, basic motion 1, is that the motion 2 be recommended to PG&A committee for review and consideration, and any recommendations brought to full council. And motion 2, which is the meat and the potatoes of it, where we've asked for a nuance involvement within a decision-making process, not to be the decision makers, but what it basically says, to enable a more inclusive process, that the scheme of delegation be updated to include active elected member participation in decision making for certain matters at Malden's much-loved Promenade Park and historic quay. So those changes are on Part A, to amend the scheme of delegation as is. Part 3, responsibility and function, Section 44, parks and open spaces. B, formal recreation areas and any building therein, and lettings of stalls, kiosks and other operations thereon, including the lettings of such fun fairs, circuses and other short lettings. To B, responsibility and functions under Section 44, parks and open spaces, formal recreation areas, other operations thereon, including lettings of fun fairs, circuses and other short-term letters, with the inclusion of ward members, officers and Malden members work together to consider proposals for the letting of kiosks and stalls. Okay, so it's not trying to take over the operations of the Promenade Park and the quay, it's being involved, okay, to represent the members of public. And Part B of this is asset management, Section 56D and E are amended to negotiate the terms of new leases, including interim initial rent, both at market rent and those cases where existing tenants have a statutory right to call for new leases on the expiry of the current term, and to authorise completion of such new leases with an annual value of 15,000 and duration not exceeding 7 years. Really, the nuts of the motion is that we're asking for minor changes to have an involvement. The previous response by officers was that it's too complicated because it's too broad and the negotiation takes a long time. I fully get that. But I think that being involved in matters is crucial as part of being a democratically elected members who actually live in the area that we're talking about. And I've got on my desk over there a letter from a very disgruntled resident about decisions that are being taken on the prom. I was on my holidays in Greece when I received emails and complaints from residents about things that happen on the prom. If we knew about them, we had the opportunity to contribute to those decision-making processes. I think we would be in a better position as individual Malden ward members to actually explain the situations that we're bringing on. So members, I ask you just to support the motion. Previously, it was difficult to change the constitution, but we've just done that on a previous motion, so previous debate. So therefore, I leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lagan, your motion 1 recommends that your motion 2 go to the PGA. Well, as you're aware, I've made a ruling that it should be heard tonight. So it might be necessary for you actually to withdraw your motion 1 with the consent of your secondary, if that's okay. If you're happy with that.
Thank you, Chair. Anything to streamline will be welcomed. Yeah, okay. If my seconder's okay with that, I'm fine.
Right. So, Mr. Jennings, is that recorded properly? Yeah. Thank you. That was seconded. Is that Councillor Stevens? No, you're not seconding it. Was Councillor Lagan's motion seconded?
Yes, Chair, by me.
Oh, right. Councillor Nunn. Thank you. Right, I've got Councillor Stevens and Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to check a point of clarity here. At the top, I'm going to have to sit down because I can't see it. I do apologise. At the top of page 5, the second paragraph reads, with the inclusion of Malden ward members, officers and Malden members. Should that say, and quite clear what that's really meant to mean?
Chairman, I wondered if I could put an amendment to the motion.
Yes, of course you can.
Please. I don't know if it's going to be seconded, but actually on motion 2 to include Riverside Park. We have more than one park.
You want Malden members to determine Riverside Park.
It and the Burnham members.
Yeah, well, that is that's a large implication amendment, I think.
Does it change
well, yeah. For the time being, that's what I'll rule. That it's out.
Councillor Thompson and the leader.
Councillor Thompson and then the leader.
Thank you, Chairman. I know Councillor Lagan won't be happy to hear this, but I'm afraid he's heard it before. I mean, I thought someone might raise the Riverside Park, and if Councillor Stamp hadn't, I would. But the fact is, all these assets belong to the whole of the district. So if Malden members are being consulted, to be honest, I want to be. So let's have an extraordinary council every single time we debate anything in either of the parks, because everyone's entitled to use them, everyone owns them, everyone shares them, and everyone travels from all over the district and indeed beyond to use them. So I'm afraid I can't support this. I think it's too much in favour of very local members just because they live near the park or represent people near the park. Thank you.
Leader and then Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. I know when the original motion came up, I did actually give my reservations then at a meeting because of the concerns about it sort of make it look as though there was some executive powers going to Malden members, although I can see there's been some moderation regarding what's coming before us tonight. But what I would say, I do agree with the comments made. The Prom Park actually is an asset of the whole district, and therefore all members should be able to be inclusive, inclusivity, to have views on that. I'm now hearing about the Riverside Park, and no disrespect to Councillor Stamp, I've actually got some assets in my ward, and what should really happen is I have always been made aware of things ahead of anything discussions. Councillor Helm and I actually have been, and met in the past with officers about it, and recently something to do with an asset in my ward. We were kept advised and informed all the way along until what was needed to be completed had been. And I think it's what Councillor Stevens has also alluded to, asking for Malden district councillors to be applied. I think what will happen is we're going to see that everyone will be seeking to have this regarding their respective wards, like Councillor Thompson referred to. And I do believe it will create actually operational difficulties for officers. And we need operational activities to be able to run efficiently and smoothly. And I think this will cause issues. I can see where Councillor Lagan's coming from. I thoroughly appreciate his views on this, but I'm afraid that I won't be able to support it for the reasons I've given. And we've already heard what other members want and want their wards, and I've heard Councillor Thompson say, and I'm afraid that will ricochet throughout the whole of this chamber, I believe. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Fluker.
Yes.
No, Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, okay. Chairman, I think the leader actually makes a good point, but I just wanted to wait to it, because my understanding was Mr. Jennings is here sitting in control to his knowledge and your knowledge. You'll tell me if I'm right. But I actually thought there was something somewhere in the constitutional rules that members should always be consulted on matters that affect their wards. Now, that doesn't give them the carte blanche to say no, but they should be consulted anyway. So maybe we're not executing this rule properly. And I can remember, and I think it was my dear friend Councillor Savage, I think the council officers may have been in his board. He always wanted to be consulted on everything to do with the council. I think that pushes the envelope a little bit too far. But I do believe, Mr. James, Chairman, that there is something in there that says the board members should be consulted. And I know this is a highly emotive issue on our typical council. And it seems to be an easy solution just to make sure we execute that properly and we keep moving forward.
I think Councillor Fluker, you're correct in the ward members being advised, but whether that is custom and practice or protocol, I don't know that it's actually written down. But Mr. Dodson wants to clarify, I think, this point.
Yes, it's actually.
Stand up, Mr. Dodson, please.
I didn't think officers did stand up. Happy
yes,
to.
they do.
Since when? We never did. Anyway.
And now you'll see the impracticalities of standing and talking to a laptop.
Yeah, I wanted actually to read out a statement from Richard Holmes, Director of Service Delivery, which I actually agree with as well. He said, the scheme of delegation has been operated by officers for many years without incident. Officers operate the process in accordance with the scheme, which is designed to ensure operational activity can proceed without delay. Boundaries are understood as tested by the recent overview and scrutiny review of the new kiosk in Prom Park. Both the commercial manager and operations manager have met with ward members to discuss operational issues on a regular basis. It's accepted that through COVID this has been less frequent, but they were never designed to seek approvals for individual projects, concessions, etc. My honest belief is that the scheme of delegation is fit for purpose. The controls sought through the motion could be better met through the Prom Park management plan and commercial strategy, which will set the boundaries for operations with greater clarity, leaving officers to manage the day-to-day business. And finally, Prom Park is a district asset, and projects and activities in the area reflect this. The park has the ability to generate revenue to the council through providing an income stream. Officers strive to seek a balance, which may mean at times it may be at odds with individual members' views. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stamp, you've already spoken. Is there Councillor Durham?
Well, thank you.
And then Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Chairman. Not for the first time, Councillor Fluke has largely stolen my thunder. Chairman, whether it's in the Constitution or not, it's certainly good manners for the relevant ward members to be informed of anything significant happening in their ward. But I would go on to say that the events that take place in the Promenade Park, and indeed Riverside Park, are part of the commercial strategy of this council, and they produce profits for the benefit of the entire district and the residents of that district. So I don't really think that it's advisable that extra weight is given to the members in that particular ward. But as I said, I think that it's absolutely essential when there are events that the members in that particular ward are notified and kept abreast of anything significant that may prompt future comment from their residents. Thank you.
Councillor Swain, and then I think the second of the motion wishes to speak, Councillor Nunn.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, some points on this. Firstly, I'm glad Mr. Dodson mentioned a management plan for the park. I hope that's going to emerge fairly soon, but I think it's been about 3 or 4 years in the gestation, and I'm not sure it's actually progressed much, so we would like to say that. And referring to Councillor Durham's point about good manners to consult, I think it does. We do need more than that. I have experienced that we get with officers that both these catch-up meetings that we've had, which haven't been quite as frequent as desired, and been informed and had discussions to try and influence, we say, events in Prom Park. But I don't claim to or want to have, it wouldn't be right to have any sort of veto on what happens in Prom Park, which is, of course, my ward. As far as, so it's a question of this, what we mean by involvement. I don't think involvement in the decision making is workable. But I think we do need involvement in the sense that we want to have good information beforehand and the ability to discuss it with officers of whatever is coming up. So I think this is really asking too much. And I agree, with the Burnham members who see this as being rather a privileged position for the Prom Park and the Hythe. So I think that's just opening a can of worms. And therefore I think this is... I shall vote against it.
Councillor Nunn, the second wishes to speak. Councillor Lagan, you'll have the opportunity to sum up at the end.
Thank you very much, Chairman. When Councillor Lagan contacted me about this motion, I was more than happy to second it. Whilst I agree with some of the things that members have said about this being a district asset, it is nevertheless a substantial and major one, and has gathered and generated an awful lot of public interest. And like Councillor Lagan, my postbag, both emails and paper post, is very much around that subject. And I think the way I read this motion was that simply the members, the elected members on the ground, who surely will know most about the prom park, being the elected members for that area, are the ones that should be involved in discussions about decisions that are going to be made. This is not to undermine the scheme of delegation. This is simply to forewarn and forearm members who will receive these kind of inquiries. And at the moment, actually, I feel a bit of a Nelly when I get phone calls from the general public when I don't even know what's going on with these concessions. So it's surely the democratic process is to involve those democratically elected members.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to draw attention to an incident that happened in Riverside Park a few years ago, where part of it was hired out for a wedding. And a marquee appeared, and next to our bus, next to the area where there are some great benches of remembrance, we knew nothing about it, and it caused absolute outrage. And like Councillor Nunn, we were unable to fend off any complaints or inquiries because we were not forewarned. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Morgan, Councillor Edwards and Councillor Stevens. I don't think any of you have spoken yet. Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to say in my day job as a property lawyer, I've spent 20 years negotiating leases and seeing the complete screw-ups that professionals make of negotiating them, that the inputs or input from members may not necessarily be of any real help to anybody. But just make that point.
Did I say Councillor Stevens next? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to mention the fact that Heybridge also has assets, large assets, in particular Drapers Farm Sports Club, of which I'm appointed to an outside body to that committee of Drapers Farm Sports Club. And if anything's being discussed regarding Drapers Farm Sports Club, I would like to be involved, not just as a ward member, but I represent this council on their committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back to what I asked earlier, because it was just a question. It wasn't an I think this is wrong. It was a question. I'll lift my laptop up this time. I hadn't thought of that before. It says, with the inclusion of Malden ward members, and I take that to mean ward members of Malden Town, as opposed to Malden District, but I'm not certain, officers and Malden members. And it's just a question. I don't understand that statement, so please could somebody explain it to me? Thank you.
I'm told, there, as Councillor Swain has pointed out, as far as the prom and the key are concerned, he is the only ward member. But I thought Councillor Lagan was wishing to include all Malden ward members, district ward members, which is what, 5 or 7 or something. Councillor Swain.
Just as a point of clarification, Chairman, I'm the ward member that covers Promenade Park, but Hythe Quay falls in North Ward, of which
right,
Councillor
okay.
Nunn is a member.
Thank you for that clarification. That's a perfectly correct interruption.
Chairman, you've allowed other members to come back. And you
No, that was a point of explanation. Councillor Hurd, we haven't heard from you.
Not yet, Chairman, no. Thank you. I think that we've already heard the answer from this, and that is through the report of Mr. Holmes, a man who I think has the highest integrity. He's saying that this is already fit for purpose. I think that this motion is nothing but interference, and I think that the scheme of delegation is already in place and it's working. I think it's too specific for Malden members. As Councillor Edwards has quite rightly said, there are properties outside of Malden, and if something happened at the area surrounding Morrison's, should I be informed of this? I think we all have meetings with the directors through our leaders and leaders of the opposition, and those things can be brought up there. But as Mr. Holmes has said, it's fit for purpose, and if it's good for Mr. Holmes, it's good for me.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Durham has spoken before. In fact, I think most members have spoken. Now, I think the Constitution, Councillor Pfluger will correct me if I'm wrong, the Constitution says that the leader has the penultimate speech, and then the mover of the motion has the summing up. Leader, did you wish to say anything at this stage?
Well, Chairman, nothing more really than I think I said at the beginning. Having listened to the debate now, my views are the same as those that have been echoed in this chamber by some members. I do feel, I can see, as I said, I respect where Councillor Lagan's coming from, and obviously Councillor Nunn, who seconded the motion, but I do feel it will cause complications involving, as Councillor Hurd has also highlighted, the delegation scheme that's working there, has been working. I think I said when I spoke initially it will cause operational difficulties. And I did say, that's happened with me and Councillor Helm, that regarding our ward, where there's been assets, members should be actually spoken with and views, but not necessarily in the way that Councillor Lagan's seeking, because I can see it becoming an all-district matter where everyone will want to be afforded the same privileges, for want of a better word, if this is approved. So, Chairman, I'm afraid I won't be supporting it for those very reasons. I think those members have spoken very well as regarding why they can't. And Councillor Swain, I take great counsel from, bearing in mind he does actually represent the Promenade Park. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Lagan, would you like to sum up before we take the vote?
Very, very much so, Chairman. I think, and thank you members for the debate. None of it surprises me. Just a couple of things. Councillor Morgan, I'm not interested in negotiating contracts. We've got very good commercial managers sitting in my life and do that. This motion isn't about that. Councillor Hurd, if you want to go and find about Morrison's, bring it to the council and see if you can find out about Morrison's then. Get more active involvement rather than leave it to people to make decisions for you. Other members, this is what it's about. You were elected to represent your areas. Okay, my motion in the past was too broad. You said bring it back, make it narrow. We've made it narrow, and now you're all blown out of proportion. This says, okay, this says with the inclusion of ward members, officers, and Malvern members work together to consider proposals presented to the kiosк. It does not say we negotiate. It does not say we make decisions. It says we amend the Constitution to be involved at the source of it, the conversation, so that we can be involved in the conversation. Know the people. I'll take a bit of both ladies in this. Okay, so we changed it by making a commercial arrangement in there for kayaks. Good idea. Speak to the boat club first of all. Speak to the users who've been there. We could have given you those names like that instead of all the hassle that came to us. This is what this is about. This is not what we're trying to take over the world. This is actually us. Because you told us to make it narrower. Okay? You said that by failing the previous motion. So we're just trying to have some involvement to get more active participation in what actually goes on the promenade. We don't even know, and Mr. Holmes, I also, Councillor Hurd, hold Mr. Holmes in great stead, but I don't always agree with him. I think the scheme delegation is lazy. Transformation, that's where it stems from, was lazy and hasn't worked. So when you're trying to actually do what you're supposed to do as an elected member, to stand up for the people in your area, then I think you should do that, rather than hide behind other things. So it's destined to fail. I knew that when I wrote it, but I can look myself in the mirror. In 10 years' time, I'll do exactly the same go. I'll try to protect the assets.
Thank you, Councillor Lagan. We'll now take the vote. Those in favour of Councillor Lagan's motion, please show. Those 10. Those against. Uh, 14. That motion is lost. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the second motion, is it?
Yes,
by Councillor Fluker. Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. members would have read the preamble, but I think for the benefit of the members of the Chairman who are listening, I just go through some highlights.
Oh, there's one here. Oh, there's one here.
There we go. It's going to be a bit too far away. Someone give him a leg up. These all work.
Councillor, there's a vacant one here that's really easy to access if it suits you. You can even have a chair to stand in front of.
Nice. Great to see the former chairman. By the way, in case I forget, you did an excellent job. Chairman, just give me a moment to just rearrange my papers. But Chairman, while I do that, can I remind everybody, Chairman, that we've just started the new Carolean reign, and on that note, Chairman, I wish everybody peace, health, and prosperity for that reign. God save the King, Chairman. Chairman, I've had literally tens of emails about this, 2 lots, because we've sadly had to have another council meeting. For the benefit of all members, I mean, it's elected members who represent the community, and they are responsible for place shaping apart from anything else. For those of us that were here during the 2014-2029 local development plan process, all of the members were involved right the way through that process, right from the beginning. And we dealt with the subsequent agreement of emerging policies. And Councillor Channer, I remember in her capacity those days as the chairman of planning and, forgive me, Planning and Licensing Committee did an enormous amount of work on this. And during that time, members considered whether or not to allocate one large site for growth or opt for several smaller ones. And likewise, the principles of garden suburbs, which were actually brought forward by Councillor Cheshire. He actually led on this concept, and it was what we did. There were also long and protracted debates concerning pepper potting, the spreading of houses throughout the district, and the sustainability credentials of rural villages. And this was all done before we did anything else, before we called for sites, before we did anything. Members were directly involved in decision making through a series of meetings at council, and as a result, residents and other interested parties could see for themselves the democratic process of place shaping taking place. Where we are at the moment, Chairman, is we have these policy working groups, then something goes off to council, and we never really all come together. We've never had the opportunity. The review of the local development plans included a call for sites, of which some have been considered by officers as being acceptable. And the people that have brought forward those sites have been told that they are acceptable. And I'll return to that in a moment. This has resulted in residents and others believing that the future development of these sites is actually a fait accompli or a done deal, which has caused much consternation and stress and uncertainty for lots of residents. More notably, when I speak to residents, more noticeably, I mean the ones in the Crouch Valley Defence Group and those that live in Hawthorne, where potentially 1,000 or more properties could come forward. I mean, if anybody has driven down the Lower Burnham Road, you would be absolutely amazed how many, I can see people nodding, including Councillor Hoodner, said, welcome to Hawthorne. You'd be absolutely amazed at how many signs are down there, and some quite strong messages to Morden District Council, which I take exception to, because it says, Morden District Council, do your job. I actually don't think we've been given the opportunity so far to do our job on this. So, and I sort of need to make it absolutely clear that in my mind, I don't believe that we've agreed these policies of these emerging sites. It's accepted that the emerging policies of site allocations have been discussed by working groups of the council, but previously these hugely important decisions, including the associated overarching policies, were debated and agreed by members on an ongoing basis. For clarity, the terms of reference of the working group agreed by the extraordinary meeting of council on the 25th of August deals only with the assessment of the 5-year housing supply. It doesn't deal with this. In summary, Chairman, it's considered that generally members have had little formal input into decisions regarding the allocations of sites, and the opportunities to consider other options, and there are other options, and new policies have not been the subject of democratic input or scrutiny by members. I mean, at a recent working group meeting, there were suggestions of estates of 2,000 houses, providing all sorts of things. This needs to be discussed in full council, and it needs to be discussed by all members, not by small working groups. And going back, just to give a little bit more weight about my concerns about these sites that have been deemed as suitable for development. So 2 weeks ago, we had a planning policy meeting, and it was said that the assessments issued to developers by the policy team, where they've said that they're suitable for development, have been caveated with the words subject to a sustainability test. Well, from the developers I've spoken to and who've contacted me, they don't recognise those words. But of course, when you look at some of these sites, they're very, very large sites, and as they stand, if you just look at them as they are not sustainable, because most of them will be bringing forward other bits of infrastructure to make them sustainable. So how you can say it's suitable, I don't know, Chairman, and that is what concerns me with this enormously. And then we've got this other issue, and I think we're going to be faced with this issue. I'll be quick, Chairman.
We've had over 5 minutes. I'm being very...
You're being more than generous. But we've also got this other issue where we've got members of the policy team saying that a site is acceptable. So if the applicant puts in a planning application and it's refused and it goes to appeal, we then have a situation whereby development management, the DM team, will be defending the appeal on behalf of this council, and the applicant will be calling a hostile witness from policy. To me, that makes no sense whatsoever. So, Chairman, my motion is quite straightforward, and I think Mr. Dodson mentioned this 10 working days earlier. And my motion is, Chairman, is that we call an extraordinary meeting of council, and this meeting takes place in not less than 10 working days. There is lots of information that's already gone to the policy working groups, so that can all be presented to council. And then that meeting is exclusively to consider the emerging policies of the review of the 2014-2029 Local Development Plan, and specifically the allocations of sites, including those in Hawthorns and indeed throughout the district. Chairman, that is my motion. Hopefully it will be seconded.
Is that seconded?
And I think...
Well, let's have who is the seconder. Who was the seconder on the paper? Councillor Lagan, do you wish to speak now or later?
Later, please, Chairman.
Thank you. Before we move on, I think I'd like to have some officer input into this and call on, I think, Mr. Winslow, who's online somewhere. Well, sorry, Mrs. Channer wishes to declare an interest.
No, it's not declared, Chairman. Chairman, I think all members in this chamber might be aware that I do live in Hawthorn. However, tonight is not discussing a planning application, and actually allocations have not been made. That is my understanding on it. And what I can say is I may live in Hawthorn, but I will not be affected any more than the great majority of residents that live in Hawthorn, or perhaps beyond. I have spoken with the monitoring officer, and bearing in mind this is really about timing and process rather than talking about specific applications, which is not on this agenda. It's a shame in a way that it has got so specific and mentioning various things about the Crouch Valley Group. Having spoken with the monitoring officer, I can tell you that I do not have an interest in this particular motion and item as come forward, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for that declaration. Mr. Winslow.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Is this an interest?
It is, I'm afraid.
Councillor Battinger.
Only as much as I am the ward member for Hawthorn, and I also live in Hawthorn, and I have seen all the signs. I have no interest in the pressure group in Hawthorn, but I do live in Hawthorn, so I will declare that.
Thank you for that. I'll try again. Mr. Winslow, would you like to give the council information, please?
So the local development plan review was initiated following a decision of council on the 23rd of February 2021 to consider and approve the Morden District Local Development Scheme 2021 to 2024. This approved a very accelerated programme of preparing an LDP review similar to what was envisaged by the government's planning white paper, which foresaw it being submitted to the government in spring 2023, being examined by a planning inspector in summer 2023 and being adopted by the autumn of the year. This therefore set the pace of preparation. On the 18th of March 2021, Council in turn established a new planning policy working group. Its purpose was established as an advisory group to support the Strategy and Resources Committee and the Council in the legal and sound development of planning policy guidance set out in the Local Development Scheme. Council also agreed that it would be a working group consisting of 7 members of the Council. The terms of reference of the working group were agreed to firstly provide cross-party member engagement and discussion in the work being undertaken to prepare the policy document set out in the Local Development Scheme. Secondly, to provide informal feedback and discussion with officers on key draft evidence, documentation and policy options to guide officers formulating recommendations to Strategy and Resources Committee. Thirdly, to provide regular updates to the Strategy and Resources Committee on its work informing the LDP review and any supplementary planning document preparation. And finally, to take an active part in any planning policy training and encourage other members outside of the working group to attend that training when offered to the wider membership of the Council. As reported to Strategy and Resources Committee on the 14th of July 2022, during the 2021-2022 municipal year, the working group had met 11 times over a 10-month period since its formation. And from March 2022, the working group's meetings were open to non-working group members, and all members have been able to attend and contribute to the discussion and debate since. Procedurally, the Council consulted on a local development plan review issues an options document which contained questions around the issues that could face the review of existing planning policies and broad options for future growth in the district. The issues and options document did not contain any site-specific information. It was published for public and stakeholder consultation between January and March 2022. Evidence that had been prepared by this consultation was also published, including the Housing and Economic Land Availability Assessment, which included land submitted in the proof of science, a rural facilities study and a settlement pattern review. It should be noted the findings of these published evidence studies are neither current nor emerging policies or allocations of the Council. The next procedural step for Council is for it to consider the valid representations that were submitted during the consultation and determine how it responds to them and determine any actions arising from them before it starts to prepare planning policies. The working group is only part-way through this activity and the report to Strategy and Resources Committee has not yet been scheduled for Committee and Council to formally consider those valid representations. The policies must be prepared in accordance with national policy and legislation, meaning they need to be evidence-led, informed continually throughout their preparation by a series of legal assessments, namely sustainability appraisal, strategic environmental assessment, habitat regulation assessment, and equalities impact assessment, as well as consultation with the public and statutory consultees in accordance with the Council's approved consultation policy, the Statement of Community Involvement. I can confirm that the scoping of the legal assessments I've mentioned for the LDP review have yet to commence, which therefore impedes the writing of any emerging policies or allocations. In preparing the LDP review, the Council as the local planning authority for the Morden District should be following due process, which is firstly lawful and secondary procedurally sound, as it is these principles by which a planning inspector will examine the LDP review in the future, and in doing so, the Council will also manage to reduce the risks that its decisions could otherwise present grounds for judicial review. There are are currently no emerging policies or proposed site allocations. Considering emerging policies, land allocations or potential areas of development restraint before due process has been followed and before statutory assessments have been prepared to inform the Council's choices would not, in my professional opinion, be in accordance with the law, national policy or national guidance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winslow. That, I believe, is the planning point. Now, Ms. Holmes will give some legal thoughts. Ms. Holmes.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. The points that Mr. Winslow has raised, we've also looked at from a legal perspective. He's obviously talking in his professional capacity as a planning officer. The resolution requires consideration of emerging policies cannot be valid if there are no emerging policies. The motion presupposes such policy exists, and we know that they do not. When developing the plan, there are two types of policies. Strategic policies set out the general principles and are not site-specific. The second type of policy is a local policy. Local policy should feed off the strategic policies in that they will inform the local policies. Site allocations would be within the definition of a local policy. In the motion, there is reference to not only the consideration of emerging policies, but also policies relating to Hawthorne. These would be local policies. As the planning advises that the Council is some way off from producing any emerging strategic policies, it must therefore be even further away from producing any emerging local policies, and that of course applies to Hawthorne. The motion as drafted gives the impression the Council wishes to jump ahead of an orderly process that is evidence-based and to consider local policies in relation to Hawthorne when the Council is nowhere ready to do so. I have no doubt that such a decision at this early stage could be judicially reviewed successfully. Even if a developer waits until the plan is adopted when it is not favourable to him, then this particular decision could be cited, showing that the plan has not been produced based on evidence and therefore is not lawful. Following on from that point, if the Council were to resolve to give special treatment to Hawthorne at this early stage in the collection of information, this will be seen as making a special case for Hawthorne when no such information is yet available for that to be the case. For example, there have been no statutory appraisals. Without these sustainability appraisals, there could be no consideration of treating Hawthorne differently from any other part of the district. I am convinced that any developer could successfully argue when the plan is examined that it was not produced in a systematic, evidence-based way. Furthermore, any developer would be able to judicially review the plan simply because Hawthorne has been given special treatment when there was no evidence to do so based on all the legal assessments required. In conclusion, I am convinced that any developer would have a strong case to argue against the soundness of the plan in any examination and would also be able to successfully judicially review the plan because the Council has acted prematurely. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's the legal position. Mr. Dodson, before I open the debate.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to take the opportunity to summarise what has been unusually strong advice from both Mr. Winslow and Mrs. Holmes in their respective expert planning and legal views. I take from their submissions that the Council is following the appropriate guidance in the development of the Council's local plan, and that if approved, the motion on the table would not only put the Council outside of guidance and process, it would leave us in a precarious legal position in defending the Council against judicial review, and leave the authority and our residents at much greater risk of inappropriate development. The Council has approved a governance process around the development of the local plan and established a working group that reports through Strategy and Resources Committee to Council. Whilst all members are able to attend this group, I'm more than happy to work with colleagues to arrange further all-member seminars in which members can engage to fully understand the process and the appropriate way forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson. Mrs. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. And by the way, anything that's not Cruella is absolutely fine. Thank you. I have to say, I think the motion is premature, as I can't say anything against or in addition to all our professional officers. I'm just trying to put this in member speak that I get, so hopefully most of us will. you know, we're not anywhere near allocating. We haven't got any emerging policies. I think there's a concern. I have a concern that there's a sort of conflation of assessment of sites with allocations of sites. I mean, yes, there's been an initial assessment. Yes, last time round, ward members certainly had some input into it. Now, back in the days of Steam, we were actually each printed papers of the sites that had been put forward in our wards, and we made our comments back to the planning policy office as well. Now we're no longer quite in the age of Steam. We can, all of us, get all of that off the public website, which is available to absolutely anybody anywhere in the country, or indeed the world, who wants to see it. You know, and we can absolutely feel free to make, you know, submissions to the planning policy officers who, it's possible they've missed something. I don't know. We do have local knowledge. That's part of why we're here. But we can't consult on options until we know, we can't discuss options until we know the results of the consultation that went out, and all, you know, residents and others gave their views on which options they wanted to see go forward. When we know more about that, we can look at it, and I believe that is a job for member seminars, which is what happened last time round. So thank you very much, Chairman.
Anybody else? Councillor Siddle and Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a complex process, and that's a crucial element. And there is concern from residents about the sites that have come forward, and that's understandable there is that concern. However, until we establish our options, which is what we're starting to do next week, no sites are going to be selected. And once we've decided on our options, the options that we decide on then take 10 months to work through consultation before we even go and look at which sites. Yeah, and immediately when we narrow it down to 3 options, a lot of those sites will immediately disappear because they won't fit within those options. So I understand. Yeah, I've got concern about the things that have come forward. However, as officers have pointed out, we need to follow this due process, so therefore we are not legally challenged at any time in the future. And on Monday, we are starting to look at those options. If we want to slow this down, we can, and that's the crucial thing. This is our local plan, so if we think we're going too fast, we can slow it down. We can take more time with it. We can, you know, and it's not as fast as it's going to be. It's going to be 2025 before this is finished. So it's not going to be 2023. It's going to be 2025 before it's finished. And that's the crucial thing to remember. If we want to make it longer than that, we can do. We're the ones that are in charge of this, and that's important to remember. And I don't think we need this motion because it's already in place in terms of the process.
Thank you, Councillor Siddle. Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Relieved to hear Mrs. Holmes' comment on the inclusion of Althorn. It seemed to me rather dangerous to include something specific in this, in such a motion, and could lead to things like predetermination and so on. Councillor Siddle has just said that we're moving towards looking at overall options. I think we haven't got the information to be able to do that. For one thing, I don't think you can make this rather academic distinction between setting strategic policies and then local policies. There's bound to be a sort of feedback effect. Otherwise, it looks too top-down and imposed. You have to take account of the realities on the ground. So far, well, we have been dependent upon what sites have been put forward. And I think the part of the problem is the way this has all been presented in planners speak. This was true of the options document going out. It was written by planners for planners, and it's not surprising that the public sort of are fazed by that. And we've now got this question of sites that are acceptable or not, or suitable or not suitable, acceptable or not. So this may be understood in planning circles, but it clearly is not understood publicly, and I think the terminology is unfortunate. Having said that, I think what we don't have and what we need before we can move forward is a detailed analysis of why each site has been put into a particular category. Having simply a 3-colour scheme for banding them is not enough. A lot of criteria were put forward in assessing locations for people to comment on, and I don't think we can really assess the sites without knowing just why a particular site was considered suitable and site B was not. Until we have that information, I don't think members can contribute usefully to moving the whole process forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bassinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I've declared, I actually live in Hawthorne. I am the ward member, and I am speaking really on behalf of my members. And these are not my views. These are views that have been sent to me either by email or people contacting me personally. When we talk about Hawthorne specifically, which I agree, why Hawthorne? Well, I think Hawthorne is specific because of the way that this is so poignantly wrong for people in the area. What's happened is there's a large site, this is for everyone's information, and they have decided that it's suitable for 1,700 houses in the Heeler. They've done the call for sites, and there were 3 sites, and in between those sites there is a road. And one side is a site called, which I can't quite remember, maybe LLAT or something like that, 2, and the other side is LTA4 or something like that, or 3. One side of the road was considered unsuitable for development, and the other side of the road was considered suitable for development because apparently you couldn't see the houses because there's a few houses in the way. So that's the evidence base. So for the residents, they look at this, they look at Hawthorne that's got 600 houses, no school, no post office, nothing. There's absolutely nothing, a pub. And that has been considered suitable. And in the Heeler, it says suitable for development. So consequently, if you were a developer, you would be armed with a call for sites that says this is suitable for development. Now, in planning speak, which I don't understand any of, I must admit, and probably nor does anybody else, really, residents certainly don't. This is a catastrophe because they are looking at school places, they are looking at hospitals, and they are thinking to themselves, why would we be considered suitable? Now, as you say, why specifically Hawthorne? Well, I agree. Probably across the district, there are many areas where people feel the same. But Hawthorne specifically is a very long way away from any amenities. You can't walk anywhere. The best thing it has is a station which has a train that goes down to Wickford, and I believe that is the main purpose why it's been considered suitable. So for the residents, you have to understand this is a very, very frightening time for them. They see their village of 600 houses being increased by 200%. I don't know. I mean, you know, how many houses they want to put there. It's a worrying time. And so when you look at these call for sites, people don't understand, especially when they see the developers already thinking, or there's Chinese whispers, I'm not quite sure what happened, but there is pre-apps going in, there are surveyors going everywhere, roads are being adopted. For them, it doesn't, you know, they can't think, oh, well, you know, we'll just leave it to the council. They see you as a threat. They see us as a threat. And that's the problem. And if you go to Hawthorne, and I've never ever seen this anywhere else, there's effigies hanging off of lampposts. There are signs up and down the roads all over the area, not just one road. It's across Hawthorne and in other parts of the area, saying, MDC, you know, do your job. MDC, make the right decision. That's us. That's me. You know, and they come to me and it's like, you know, explain this. How is it possible? A village with nothing is being considered suitable. And you say this is based on evidence. What evidence? And I know this is, probably not planning speak, but at the end of the day, we are all going to be judged on this. So we need collectively to make sure that we make the right decisions about school places, about hospitals, about doctors, because that's what worries people and how they get in and out of this area. We've got one road. So across the district, we've got one road. If that gets blocked, nobody gets out. Nobody goes to work. There's no work here. Everyone has to travel. So consequently, why is Hawthorne specific? Because it typifies this sort of judgment that people are making. Sorry.
I think
I think I have, and I'll leave it right there. I will leave it there. But I must admit, I must say that I concur with everything that Councillor Fluker has said, and I will be supporting his motion.
Thank you for your passion. Councillor Stevens, did you? Yes, you're down on my list.
That's quite a hard act to follow. Thank you, Councillor Bessinger. It is a great act. No, he's passionate about Hawthorne, and I'm actually quite surprised that I'm not standing here having to be passionate about Tollesbury in quite the same way, because we've got a lot of land that's allocated, or, sorry, I shouldn't say that, that's subject to the call for sites that might be suitable. But I have understood very strongly from the working party meetings that I've gone to that that's very much sort of the first draft, and that sites will go away from that, other sites will come along. And I've definitely understood that. And I haven't been to all of the meetings because I wasn't on the group until it was widened out to other members. So I think that message has come through quite loud and clear. And the other thing that I've been involved with was quite early doors. We held a public meeting in Tollesbury to say to people, you're going to see maps, you're going to see red areas of land around Tollesbury. Don't panic. And people aren't panicking. So I would recommend to other members, if you've got frightened residents, and I get why people, I really, really do get why people would be frightened, but I would say hold a public meeting, let people come, let them come and be passionate as you have just been, but you can just draw the heat out of it a little bit and calm it down. It doesn't need to end up as an adversarial thing against the officers who really are trying to get our LDP through, and we don't want to be slowing that down. Thank you.
Councillor Stamp.
Thank you, Chairman. I just really want clarity on the motion, if Councillor Fluker could give it to me, because I think it's quite straightforward. I'm seeing more into this, or the members are seeing maybe more into this. I think what he's trying to ascertain is that members are included. Yes, this group was opened up. I'm lucky, I was actually involved in this last time, in this planning policy group this time, so I have been included in it. Whereas I think many of the members haven't, and they haven't had the opportunity or chance to agree, disagree, ask questions. Some of us are more vociferous and vocal, which is hardly surprised to many of you. I'm one of those in that category about it. But I think it's really important that this motion is considered, and I think it should go to council, and I think members should be included more if they choose not to. Chairman, at the moment I've attended working groups, and I'll be quite honest, the poor show of some members attending working groups is disgraceful. There was one this week, and I think there's one previously. Not all members are attending, so I think this motion gives Councillor Fluke and Councillor Lagan the opportunity that all members can attend, whether we like it or not. This is going to affect everybody, and I think the motion should be supported, and as long as it may, I think Hawthorne should be taken out, because I don't think any specific village or town or hamlet should be included with the advice what the monitor officer is actually given. But I think a meeting should be held, and I think all members should be kept up to date. It's all right saying you can access it, but not everybody has the chance to access it at the time, Chairman. So I'm afraid I do support this recommendation.
I'm going to come to Councillor Durham, and then Councillor Lagan to you, and then Councillor Fluker can sum up. Oh no, sorry, Councillor Channer, the leader, and then Councillor Fluker. Councillor Durham.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chairman, it's absolutely essential that local members have an input into any areas identified in their particular wards. That's exactly as Councillor Thompson said. That's exactly what happened last time. Albeit we all sat round in the training room or whatever it's called this week to look at the maps and discuss the pros and cons of those areas. But I do take on board what the monitoring officer has said, what the planning officer has said, in that this motion is premature and indeed could land us in a load of legal trouble. And I commend Councillor Bassinger on his really impassioned plea on behalf of Hawthorne. I've driven along the Low Burnham Road and I've seen all the signs. The printer's obviously done very well out of that. I just would point out that at the very least, I think he just perhaps has expressed a predisposition, but that's up to Councillor Bassinger to decide. But Chairman, members absolutely must be involved, but I honestly don't think that this motion is either timely or advisable at this stage.
Councillor Lagan. Yeah, Councillor Dewick. I did say I wanted to draw this because time's getting on.
I think the concern for me about this is, in the 31.5 years that I've sat in this council chamber, I don't ever recall a district plan producing quite such a problem as this has done. 31.5 years ago, we were into the first district plan, and nothing really ever got out into the public domain until sites were being looked at in this chamber. When we then moved on into the review of that, as far as I can recall, it was much the same. And now at the last, when this district plan was produced, again, we didn't get this problem. I got told the other day, well, there's 200 new houses going in Southminster. Oh, that, I don't know. I don't know whether Councillor Fluker knows, because it's the first I've heard of it, but it's bad. People have been told. The council, people in the council have told them. So where is all this information coming from? Hawthorne, up until 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was just poo-pooing the whole thing. And then all of a sudden I got told, well, this landowner has said, well, he's been told that his site's perfect for it. And then another. So there's something happening. People are being told things. And to be honest, that is the worry. There is too much information that is untried and untested getting out there. Why is it getting out there and how is it getting out there? I don't know, but I keep hearing about all different places around the countryside that are all about to be developed because all district councillors said it. So somebody somewhere is saying far too much or saying it incorrectly to give landowners, maybe and developers, a false view that their site's okay, they're going to get a job. So that should never be happening. I don't know why it is happening. For that reason, I will support Councillor Fluker's motion.
Councillor Lagan. You're having your right as seconder to.
You've been very kind, Chair, very, very patient, as other members have. I think I obviously support the motion because I would have seconded it now. But listening to the debate, there's a couple of points that I'd like to bring to people's thinking. First of all, Councillor Bassinger, I commend you for that. That was an act. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. Stand up and speak and put a view over. You know, I'm making you predisposed. You'll make it. Yeah. Well, look, you know, I have views as well, but you look at things with an open mind. I know that. So there. He told me I work with people. He tells me they're not happy. I'm sorry, they're not. I mean, if we need to slow it down, we should slow it down. We should not push something like this through there just to get the timelines here. We've got good officers working on this. I think the endemic issue is the amount of information that's coming out for us to be able to contribute to the decision. So I think that what we've got, Councillor Durham, everything's a threat. We can always have legal action. Of course we can. Everything we do could be taken for legal action. I've asked you to give me some information on previous cases. I'm still waiting for that. And I'm not having a go. It's always at the end of it. But as an unfortunate councillor once said, have this council have the testicular fortitude to stand up for this. Okay? And that resonated in my mind. It's an unfortunate phrase, and I apologise because I would prefer myself to get a good kick in. But you know, if it was a legal emotion, why was it brought here tonight? And you can tell by the emotive nature, Chair, that this is an absolute vital piece of work that needs to be scrutinised and members participating in. So I don't think we should shy away from the threats of legal action, because it can always flag into legal action. And all I hear is you say judicial review. This could happen, that could happen, anything could happen. I think we need to be strong enough, because it's such a powerful part of the shaping of the council, as Councillor Sims quite rightly said. You know, what we do now is for tomorrow. If we haven't got schools, we haven't got infrastructure, we haven't got anything, we're going to cough it right up.
Councillor Channer.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm just going to go back to what I said at the beginning. This wasn't about planning application, and it's not about an allocation in Hawthorne. I do think we need to be mindful of that. And I said at the beginning this was about process and procedure, and it's to do with timing, actually, I feel, Chairman. And it's regarding, policies and allocations. It's not where or whatever, it's when. And the timing is yet to come. And in fact, Councillor Siddle, I will say, I think he made the point very clearly. There is a meeting coming up on the 26th. There's a whole work done in there. I appreciate totally Councillor Bassinger as the ward member, making the statements he may have done, which he explained were not his views, the views he has received. And of course, that's what he feels he needs to do as a ward member. But I would urge members to bear caution in light of what we've heard from the three officers tonight, from the planning's perspective, legal, and what Mr Dodson has to say, Chairman. And that's all I'm going to say at this juncture.
Councillor Fluker.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a huge amount there, and I know you're winding down this debate, and I think that actually gives weight to having an extraordinary meeting, so we can fully understand the points that the Deputy Monitoring Officer has mentioned, Mr Winslow. But if we can just mention this, go back and visit this thing about policy. On the council website, there's a 3-colour scheme applied to all of these sites. So where does that policy come from? There has to be a policy there that's done this. And when we talk about these sites that applicants have been told they're suitable development, I actually know of one case where an applicant was told that their site was not suitable for development. They came back to the policy team and then they were told it was. So what is this policy? We know it's not an emerging one, because the monitoring officer said there aren't. So what is that policy that they're using? It all seems very strange to me, because these are all greenfield sites. All greenfield sites. Let's just drill into policy again, because there aren't any. But before I do that, let's think about judicial reviews, because I don't think a day goes past without members being threatened with a judicial review. I don't like it. Do some research, find out how many judicial reviews have taken place. Do it. You would think there's like tens every day against council. There's not. I think the last one that fell foul on was Richard Jenrick, who lost his job, but they never had the review in the end. They just told him to resubmit the application. And as far as judicial reviews are concerned, if we don't have an extraordinary meeting to look at these policies that aren't emerging, and I'll come to those in a moment, then yes, we could be criticised, because council has not been given the opportunity to review the policies that aren't emerging. So we haven't got any emerging policies. But Councillor Siddle has just confirmed something that I always knew, and that is on the 26th of this month, which I think might be Monday.
I think that microphone was working.
On Monday, on the 26th of this month, which is Monday, the working group are going to consider policy options and make a decision. Working groups don't make decisions. How many members here are on that policy working group? So, for the benefit of the tape, there's about 4 people. I think I might be 5 people. 5, right. They are going to make a decision on...
Councillor Fluker, you're giving out incorrect information.
I have been told I am on the policy... Chairman, I am not, because I
think Monday's meeting is open to all members of
Yes,
the council.
it is. But you can't vote because you're not on the working group.
No, there's no voting.
Chairman, they are asking the working group is going to be asked to consider policy options with the sole intention of moving certain policies forward. Those options. They are not my words. That was what we were told at the last Planning Policy Working Group
Councillor
meeting.
Fluker, I
That
think you've
is
had your
why.
3 minutes and
That
Mr.
is why,
Dodson-
Chairman. I think for the benefit of democracy, Chairman, and since I've stood up, I've had about 10 emails about this saying that we're actually being filibustered and this should go ahead. Chairman,
Mr. Dodson.
Well, Chairman, with the greatest respect, I think you'll find I'm the last person to speak on this motion, and it should be put. But before I do,
Councillor Fluker, you have been putting forward some incorrect information, and I think that needs to be clarified. And Mr. Dodson will either clarify it or agree with you.
Thank you, Chairman. The group will review the options around the sites. What they won't be doing is making a decision. They may be making a recommendation that would go through the governance process that has been agreed by this council, which is through Strategy and Resources and Council, but they won't be making a decision. They will be doing exactly what the councillor asked them to do and engaging members in the options around those various that will then determine the sites, not at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, now
Chairman,
call the vote.
I wish to make an amendment to my motion.
I'd...
Yes. So, Chairman, I wish to amend my motion, and I wish to.
Has your seconder agreed?
Yes, they will do. Yeah, they will, because.
Just one thing, you don't speak.
No, I'm not speaking for you. But I'm in communication at the moment with Councillor Helm, and he thinks it's a great idea, Councillor Lagan. I know he's on the phone. He's coming on my phone. So, Simon, so Chairman, I would just ask to remove the words, including those in Hawthorne Ward, Chairman. So we just delete those few words at the end. This gives Council Chairman, this motion, the opportunity for all of us to debate this. I think we should be given that opportunity on behalf of our residents.
Amendment seconded?
Yes.
Do members agree that amendment?
Yes.
Right, thank you. So the substantive motion now stops at the local development plan. Is that your amendment, Councillor Fluker?
It is indeed.
Thank you. Right, Mr. Dodson, can you read out the motion as it's now amended?
What's next?
It finishes plan over there, local development plan.
Okay. That the council calls an extraordinary meeting to take place in not less than 10 working days to consider the emerging policies of the review of the 2014-2029 local development plan.
Right, members, that's the motion you'll be voting on. I'd like to make a comment. I don't believe I will be able to convene an extraordinary council meeting within 10 working days. So please give me some movement on that. We'll leave the motion as it stands, but understand I don't think I can convene a meeting within 10 working days. I know what you're going to say. The council says it will, but I can't do it.
It says the council calls an extraordinary meeting to take place in not less than 10 working days. In other words, it's more than 10 working days. Could be 14, could be 21.
Okay.
Thank
you. Thank you for that correction. I misread it. That's very welcome news. Right, I now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour?
I'll second that on behalf of the people of Hawthorne South, who I know are all listening, and you've got an election.
Those in favour say agree. Those against say against. Mr. Dodson, call the roll, please.
Councillor Bassinger.
Agree.
Councillor Misfield. Councillor Bell. Councillor Boyce.
Against.
Councillor Mrs. Channer.
Against.
Councillor Dewick.
Agree.
Councillor Durham.
Against.
Councillor Edwards.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Fleming.
Against.
Councillor Fluker.
For.
Councillor Hurd.
Agree.
Councillor Hubner.
Against.
Councillor Hull.
Agree.
Councillor Keys.
Against.
Councillor Lagan. Councillor Morgan.
Against.
Councillor Morley.
Against.
Councillor Nunn.
Against.
Councillor Shaughnessy.
Agreed.
Councillor Siddle.
Against.
Councillor Spenceley.
Agree.
Councillor Stamp.
Agree.
Councillor Stevens.
Against.
Councillor Mrs Stilts.
Against.
Councillor Swain.
Against.
And Councillor Mrs Thompson.
Against, thank you.
We have 10 for and 16 against. That motion is lost, 10 for and 16 against. Thank you, members. We're within 5 minutes of my cut-off time, so we're going to have to move on a bit. We now move on to agenda item 11, questions in order procedure rules 6.3, which notice has been given. I have no such questions. Agenda item 12, updating the constitutional report of the Corporate Governance Working Group. Yes, do you agree those recommendations? I heard an agree. Is that everybody agreed? It will help things moving on. Thank you. Agenda item 13, Performance Governance and Audit Committee of the Corporate Governance Working Group, page 37 to 38. Report of the Monitoring Officer. Leader, would you like to give that? I'm quite happy for.
Do you want Mrs Holmes to do it, Chairman? She stood up.
Yeah, okay. Miss Holmes, please.
Apologies, Chair, Leader. This report, I'll be very brief, hopefully you've read it, relates into a decision as to which or how the Council would like matters in relation to the review of the Constitution to be dealt with. The options at the moment, it is currently in the remit of both the Corporate Governance Working Group and the Performance Governance and Audit Committee in their terms of reference. The purpose of the report is for Council to decide which of those two bodies should deal with matters in relation to the Constitution, whether that be the Corporate Governance Working Group ceases to exist and the matters are then dealt with by PG&A, or whether you wish for the Corporate Governance Working Group to carry on with those matters, making recommendations in the usual way, and for the terms of reference of PG&A to be amended accordingly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Leader, do you wish to say anything? Which
yes.
one do you want to recommend, if any?
Well, Chairman, my view is, and with all due respect to the Performance Governance and Audit Committee, my preference is actually to keep the Corporate Governance Working Group, because that allows informal discussion in much greater depth than perhaps the committee can. And also, it doesn't just cover all those issues. I recall the corporate governance actually looking at various other elements that to do with the Constitution, rather matters regarding the Council that had been decreed to it. And so I think it's a valuable body that would actually be lost if we don't have that working group in position. And I think I'm correct in that Councillor Siddle actually was the chairman at one point, and I do recall quite a number of interesting subject matters that arose in that working group, which was chaired very, very well. And it allowed actually members to thrash out and give their views. It's a bit, when you're in the chamber, I'm not saying we don't give our views, but you can do it in a way so much differently within the working group environment and between officers, which allow what I would call a greater degree of exchange because you are concentrating on those items. So it's nothing against PGA, but I do think the corporate governance has been in existence for quite a while, and I think to lose it would be an error on behalf of this council and how we operate in governance and everything. Thank you, Chairman.
So that's your recommendation?
My recommendation is to keep the corporate governance working group, Chairman.
Seconded? Did I see? Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay. Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I disagree with the leader. I think if PGA is working, operating properly, it could be discussed, and I think if decisions and discussions are being taken, maybe not decisions, and that you feel you can't discuss them openly in an open committee, that's hardly following Councillor Fluker's mantra, which is open transparency. I certainly don't feel as though I can't say anything when I'm sharing PG&A, and I would hope that anybody else who sits on PG&A feels that they can say whatever they want within reason, as long as it's not offensive, obviously, Chairman. And I think the working group should cease, and I think the responsibility should go to PG&A. And I think that's where that committee is designed to do. And like I said, Chairman, if it's operating properly, and hopefully it is, it will be discussed openly and transparently. So I disagree, and I would like to go against that recommendation. When it fails, if it fails, Chairman.
I actually chaired this particular corporate governance working group, and the arguments at that time were simply that it wasn't a matter of one being in public and one being in private, but the PG&A has members, would have members only from the PG&A, whereas the corporate governance working group is a working group of the council, and it can draw membership from across the council. And it would, if that existed, I, as chairman, who I believe actually a chairman should be a member of this working group. That I'm just putting the view that I put. Now, Councillor Fleming actually disagreed with me and took your view. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for your very kind words, Leader. In terms of the situation, it is quite an interesting dilemma, this particular scenario. And I remember having conversations with Councillor Jarvis when he was a member at the council about this particular thing. One of the things that I feel about PG&A is it needs more, and it needs more teeth, bite, whatever you want to call it, more depth that it can go into. So I agree that this should really go under the committee itself. You know, it's called governance, it's in the title. So therefore, it should be in that committee and not as a separate working group, because that is where the governance is decided. That's where the governance decisions are made. I can see the reasoning that yes, it will come over all committees. However, it's about setting the constitution. PG&A is about setting the constitution, so therefore it should be within that committee.
Yeah, thank you. What I'll do now to move things on, I'll take the vote on Mrs. Chalmers, and if that the fors and against will give us the answer, Councillor Stamp. Are you happy with that?
Yes, Chairman. Chairman, if anybody wants to actually read the terms of reference PG&A, I've got it here. I think it's really helpful.
It's in the report, Chairman.
It's
in the report, Chairman.
Yeah, I am conscious of the time, and it's nearly time to shut this meeting down. Those in favour of the leader's proposal, please show. Nine. Those against? Then the Corporate Governance Working Group will cease to exist as of this minute. Thank you, members. Agenda item 14, member training criteria. Leader.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll have a get on to that for me. Hold on. This is. Oh, sorry, Chairman. Just try and get my paper. Yes, this is really, Chairman, to establish criteria to fairly manage member training approaches that have been happening. What's been happening, Chairman, unfortunately, at one time you may recall, we did have leader support, member support, and through the transformation, that no is longer in existence. And so obviously I'm dealing with all those matters that otherwise at some time were triaged or helpfully done the administration of. So regarding training, what's been happening is I actually have been involved in training, giving to some members, and then recognise that whether they're free or not, perhaps we need something to channel it through to make sure, because there is a budget and we ought to have something that can be channeled through and actually applied with some criteria or a method in which we could be aware of what's been spent in the budget. I certainly, apart from asking recently, didn't have all the costs that have been made, and some members have gone independently to seek training as well, not going through that mode. So this would actually put things in order, and you can see the officer has prepared how matters on training would be decided. And there is also then what I call the safety belt. There will be members become involved at a certain time, which is described within the report, and then it's done on a scoring, and members certainly come into play, a group, and that would include the committee chairman, the leader, I can't remember if it's the deputy leader, but whatever described in the report. So there's that safety valve if the scoring goes into an area where it could be a bit mixed whether that training should be carried out or not. And I think it would be sensible to have this, Chairman, because it then takes the pressure off of me trying to keep a list of who might be doing what or who comes to me and asks what. And it will also keep it fair, because also then I can't be accused of perhaps giving preferential treatment to a member who might come regularly for training or anything. And then the budget is all kept within the governance of the appropriate officer, which is Cheryl Hughes, who is obviously intrinsically linked to the governance of this authority. So it's really to assist the training matters for members and keep a clear record, Chairman, of the budget and who's attending what, and the criteria and everything are defined within the report.
Members agree with the recommendations? Right, Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. No, I actually don't agree with the recommendation. I'd like to actually say I think this has been come to council because of an instance that happened with me, and I do apologise. Well, I feel as though it is leader, even though you're shaking your head. I wanted to take a sit-for training course as the chairman of PG&A, and I was told that I couldn't do it because it was more suitable for a different committee and not my committee. And if you actually look at the terms of reference for my committee chairman, it was suitable for my committee, and our committee signs off the accounts and the risk assessment and everything to do with that. Now, I was really quite upset that I was told I couldn't do training. I take my role very seriously, and I will not recommend to my committee that, if I don't know what I'm talking about. You may disagree with me on many things, but I think many of you will agree that I try to do things properly. So forgive me if the officer thinks, if it hasn't been because of my difficult situation, I was told I couldn't attend the training. What I would like to point out is this training budget is less than Burnham Town Council's on an annual basis. Burnham is a small town council, and we allow more training in our budget than what this council does in theirs for members who are making important decisions over the district, Chairman. So no, I know you're going to shut me up.
No, I'm just going to ask what you're going to recommend should happen.
I'm recommending that it still stays with the leader. She should make that final decision, and I don't think it should go to officers to make decisions on member training. They can suggest and make sure some of it, and I think we've got some trainers here. Councillor Siddle's an excellent trainer, and I think we discussed a while ago what member training should be given, and I think that needs to be addressed. And if members want to look at the statutory training and what's already been agreed, it's here. And I would hope members have actually researched and seen what statutory training we have and what training we get. So no, I don't agree it goes to the officer. I think it should stay with the
leader. Okay. Councillor Durham.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, nobody is going to say that valid training isn't absolutely essential for member development and so that members can do their jobs adequately. And to be kept up to date with various changes, etc. We have to be mindful that there are lots of different types of training out there, and there is training that is undertaken by the LGA, the CCA, the DCN, SIPFA, etc., which are valid members will get frequent emails offering training. They come up with an attractive headline saying, do you want to learn more about this or that? And there is a fee attached to that. In nearly every case, they are sponsored, privately organised training sessions, or they call themselves training sessions, but they are usually funded by pressure groups, interest groups, or even commercial entities. And that, despite the fact that you may get an email that looks innocuous, it isn't in fact what I would call a terribly valid training course. We should have a member development strategy, and that member development strategy should identify bona fide courses for various positions, leadership, finance, whatever, and should be these courses should be open, subject to budget. And bear in mind that the LGA do fund some courses for us. I've been lucky enough to attend several that have been completely funded, but we really must have a list of the courses that are suitable. And be prepared, if necessary, to fund those. How that is worked out, it doesn't really matter, but provided that the courses that the members are put forward for are legitimate and operated by independent bodies.
Councillor Rell, again, please, members, time is moving on.
I should speak quickly. Every day is a school day. I'm a great believer in lifelong learning, and I know Councillor Siddle, Councillor Spencer, both trainers. I don't think anyone knows what training I need to be able to operate in my position better than I do. And I don't think it's right that that decision is made by officers. I've had with all due respect, I've not had any training since I've been here. I've seen a lot of presentations, but I've not had any training. Now, again, Councillor Siddle, Councillor Spencer will be able to talk to you till probably the end of the week about learning styles and how different people learn in different ways. And we need to take that into account as well. One size does not fit all. Thank you.
Councillor Siddle, Councillor Spenceley, and I think
I will be brief.
Leslie wants to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. We do have a member training working group, which hasn't met for quite a long time, and it was set up to define this sort of thing. So I think rather than agreeing this recommendation, we call a meeting of the working group to define this and look at what is the best way. Yeah, and especially with the election coming up this year, we need a really good induction programme for next year's intake, because there wasn't one when I joined.
Members, shall we withdraw this paper and look at?
I'll make a proposal. I'll do another proposal, Chairman, if you like.
Yeah, go on then, Lena.
Might as well. Everyone else is having a go. Actually, that's not a bad point. I mean, I want to make it clear to Councillor Stamp it wasn't the issue to do with yours. I mean, I get inundated with training courses, and some of them are highly expensive. You think, oh, this sounds good, and then you see something for a virtual meeting of 345 quid or something, which I don't quite ascertain how that can be. We're not talking about anything free. I try to make sure everyone gets the freebies. There was one I thought would interest a lot of members, so I made inquiries as to what it would mean if every member had the opportunity, and I blew the budget. And that's when the reality came. And it is quite hard when you're doing this to do the administration myself, so that certainly would be something that needs to be looked at. But I'm more than happy actually to go with that suggestion. Let this go to the member training working group. They can look at this report. And actually what it was done, it wasn't a case, it was quite fair scoring applied to those elements you can see. And then, as I said, there was the member panel that would come in, Chairman of PGA, SNR, Councillor White, Councillor Siddle would be there, myself,
Councillor
etc.
Chan, if we're going to withdraw it, I'll let Councillor Spenceley.
I only wanted to say something very quick. So I was a former director of the University Centre Harlow.
Oh.
I have, worked. I'm an adult education specialist. So what I would say, we do need to save money as a council. We all know that, and there's a lot on here about in-house training. And I just think that officers, I've seen already as a new member, officers trying really hard to deliver training, but my question would be, is I'm not part of that working group, is maybe they'd look at providing training for the officers to provide training, because you're asking, you do need that, because from what I've seen so far, and I've seen officers really trying, but they need to have those skills because we're making any possible
I think you're confirming the point. That we need to withdraw this, and I know Mr. Leslie wishes to speak, but I haven't got time for him to speak. So, do members agree that this be withdrawn and we look at this working group?
It goes to the member training working group, Chairman. That's the proposal.
Yeah. Okay. And we've agreed that. Thank you. Right. 15 A12 to 120. Noted. Thank you.
The recommendations, Chairman. There are some important recommendations there. I propose the recommendations, Chairman, as per the report.
Okay, agreed. Councillor Lagan.
I just want to make, thank you, just want to make a quick comment, because our recommendation is quite important, and I do agree with recommendations, but just as a matter of interest, because it's a national strategic infrastructure project, our impact for strategic themes of 5.1, the place strategy and associated corporate outcomes supports the reducing of impact of pollution on the environment and delivering new infrastructure through development. I can't see how running a road, making a road bigger does that, but just an observation.
Yeah, thank you. Members agree to recommendations? Right, then we go to agenda item 16, questions to the leader. Now, in view of the time, I'm going to miss that tonight. I'm sorry. No, Councillor Fluker, I did wish to get the meeting done by 9:30.
In the interest of openness and transparency,
No.
at least say, can we write to the leader?
Yes, please do.
Because obviously the council's involved in a loan of £2 million to fund, and I think we need some answers.
Leader, go on, carry on.
Well, Chairman, I've got to answer the whole question.
Oh.
No, Chairman, I would propose that we go with your recommendation, and I agree that we get the opportunity to write, Chairman, because we need to get on.
Thank you.
Whilst they've been perfectly entertained, I'm sure they've got bits to go through.
Business by reason of special circumstances considered by the chairman to be urgent. Agenda item 17. Under P&C, there is another item which will be a statement from Mr. Dodson. So can I then have the proposal to resolve that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A to the Act, and this satisfies the public interest in relation to management of resources, commercial options for Princes Road, and a statement from Mr. Dodson. Is that seconded?
Yes, Chairman.
Is that agreed?
Yes.
Thank you. Can the link be turned off?